48 hours to go for the polls. The long election campaign in Pakistan winds down tonight. The campaign will close at midnight, allowing candidates and even voters a short breather before polling begins on Wednesday. Expect action later tonight. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's Imran Khan will be holding a rally in Lahore. Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz PMLN's Shehbaz Sharif will address a rally in Rawalpindi. Imran Khan's PTI is being projected to get the maximum number of seats in this election ahead of the PMLN, the incumbent party. Some opinion polls indicate that he may be able to form the government in alliance with smaller parties. With Nawaz Sharif in jail and court cases against the Pakistan People Party's Asif Ali Zardari, the campaign was always skewed in favor of Imran Khan. It also witnessed 2 terror attacks. More than 170 people were killed in this Pakistan election campaign over the past few weeks. The man to watch then clearly is Imran Khan. He's been called Pakistan's Prime Minister in waiting. Opinion polls say that his party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, may win the maximum number of seats in Wednesday's election. With one political rival behind bars and the other a novice, Imran Khan is clearly the most sought-after leader in Pakistan today. He's also seen as a politician close to the army. There are allegations that the Pakistan Intelligence Agency and the army are propping up Imran Khan, something that both sides deny. Here's an exclusive interview.
What do you respond to allegations that we've been reading for the past weeks that you are supported by the army and the security agencies of Pakistan?
The same allegations existed before 2013 election. When PTI burst into the public with these massive rallies and crowds. Again, we had, that ISI was supporting PTI. But when it turned out, the 2000 election were all the players were supporting the Sharif party, including the establishment. And this all came out because we then did a protest on the rigged elections. And when the hearing took place in the Supreme Court, one of the things that came out was the establishment supporting PMLN. So now what is happening is that first time PMLN is not being supported by the establishment. PML was nurtured, born in the lap of a military dictator. Nawaz Sharif was the protege of General Zia. He picked up a businessman and made him into a politician. Then ISI backed him in 1990. And there's a Supreme Court case where the ISI chief said we paid money to PMLN, Nawaz Sharif. Then in 97, they were backed by the establishment. Then in 2013, they were backed. So this time, they are not backed by the establishment. And on top of it, the corruption cases of Nawaz Sharif, he's always got away with corruption cases. There have been corruption cases against him past 20 years. This time, neither the Supreme Court allowed him to get away with it, and the 2 brigadiers in the JIT, which was formed to investigate Sharif's corruption, neither did they succumb to pressure of Nawaz Sharif. So it's the first time he has not been helped either by the Supreme Court or the army. Previously it was, because this Asghar Khan case in 1990, where he took money from ISI and won the elections against Benazir Bhutto in 1990, no one heard the case for 20 years because he's too powerful. But this time, his main grouse is that the establishment did not help him. And he's attacking the military and the Supreme Court and saying that, they are against me because he's working from the George Bush saying, either you're with me or against me. So he wanted his own umpires, and this time he's not got them.
So you're saying the ISI doesn't have at all a political role in this election?
ISI would have a political role as much as it would have in any elections. But to say that PTI has been supported is going against, if you look around in the public, the only party that is drawing massive crowds is PTI. The only party that is actually going out in public and people are supporting it is PTI. So if democracy is people, then people are supporting PTI. All opinion polls show that PTI has just gone up. And so to blame our success on being backed by the military is just nonsense.
In another interview, Imran Khan broke his silence on former wife Reham Khan. He said that marrying her was the biggest mistake of his life. Reham, who is WION's special panelist for Pakistan's general election, did for once agree with Mr. Khan. She said that Imran Khan is right. The marriage indeed was a mistake. Listen into her side of the story.
I couldn't agree more with this statement of Imran, and there's very few things that I agree on with him, but this I do agree was his biggest mistake, and I'll tell you why exactly it was the biggest mistake. Because you see, we have celebrities like himself and self-proclaimed leaders like himself surrounded by sycophants, and this time round he found someone who would call a spade and who would not really be able to flatter his ego, and was telling him exactly what was wrong with his government and what was wrong with his decision-making or lack of decision-making problems. And since I'm not a puppet, I think that I do not have any respect for those who are puppets or who have no moral compass. So indeed, I'm in that respect certainly very different. And that perhaps was a shock to the system and perhaps a shock to the ego also. And this is a first for him, because a lot of people have a lot more information, a lot more knowledge, maybe have spent over 22 years with him, and certainly other women as well as men within the party, all of them know that what I'm saying is absolutely true. But nobody has had the courage and the guts to call it out and to say it very clearly, very bluntly, and put it out there to expose the reality. So of course, I mean, this in his eyes obviously is a mistake, and I couldn't agree more with that, because he should have been a bit more careful, maybe chosen another sycophant, maybe chosen someone who would be a party to his turning a blind eye to corruption in the KP government and also within the party. I wasn't going to do that. For me, the homeland and Pakistan comes first, and if it means sacrificing someone who is close to you and distancing yourself from them, I will do that. If it was my own son or my brother, I would still do that. For me, Pakistan comes first. There is no compromise on that. So it is an ideological rift. It was always an ideological rift, and I couldn't compromise my principles. I cannot compromise my principles like Imran can. He is, if I was a political advisor, I would say that was a bad move. I think it is strategically showing incompetence, really. And that has always been the problem, where even, and that was mainly the argument that I would say, that even if people are not disloyal to you, they are incompetent. And I feel that the image deconstruction and the destruction of the hero that we've seen from the beginning of this year, pre my book, is actually because of very, very bad advice. And here today he stands defamed. It's a tragic fall for a hero. And I think that this advice also came at the wrong time. It shows his frustration. I think that it's everybody around the world now is writing about the fact that it is looking like a very, it's not even a sham democracy. It's actually just a selection process, and it's been called the dirtiest election in Pakistan's history. So that is certainly going to make him look very edgy and nervous, and this was the wrong idea. To give an interview to a tabloid was a knee-jerk reaction, and I think very, very misguided. He should have known better than that. But of course, that's the problem, you see. This is the way they've handled this book, and the way they've reacted to it is actually exposing their incompetencies and, as I've repeatedly said, their buffoonery. So I think that this is not a very clever strategic move.
For politicians in Pakistan, the relationship with India is probably the most complex issue. So it's worth dwelling on who stands where when it comes to the India policy. Nawaz Sharif was probably India's best bet. As a leader who repeatedly challenged the army and one who wanted to mend fences with India, Nawaz Sharif would have been the ideal Prime Minister for New Delhi. That may not be. Sharif and his daughter are in jail, as we know, for corruption charges, and the chances for their party, the PMLN, are bleak. If by some miracle it does come back to power, Shehbaz Sharif will be their prime ministerial face, and he is known to be a person who toes his brother's line on normalizing relations with India. On the 12th of June, right after the Trump-Kim meeting, Shehbaz Sharif had suggested that India and Pakistan resume talks. But here's the fundamental thing. There's a world of difference between what's said and what's done. In the unlikely event of a win for the PMLN, it will not challenge the army. In fact, Shehbaz Sharif is also known to be more accommodative of the army as compared to his brother Nawaz. So there will be status quo of if the incumbent returns. Next comes Imran Khan. His campaign was rather vitriolic, from calling his political rivals names to using unparliamentary language. The PTI chief used every tactic to grab attention. Even when it came to India, he minced no words, accusing the Narendra Modi government of ruining ties between the two countries. Imran Khan said that the current dispensation often makes Pakistan a scapegoat when it comes to Kashmir.
There's a independence freedom movement going on in Kashmir, and India blames Pakistan for that. And so therefore, Kashmiri freedom movement is an impediment between peace between the two countries, because the Modi government, Narendra Modi government, makes Pakistan a scapegoat for what's happening in Kashmir.
So you're saying on the Indian part, there's no will to settle this issue?
I think the relationship probably have been the worst since the Narendra Modi government came in, which is a very hardline government, and actually give full marks to Pakistan for trying to get better relation. But you see, as long as Kashmir is such an issue now because of this movement gaining momentum, and then the atrocities of the Indian troops, violation of human rights in Kashmir, then Pakistan is blamed, and Pakistan, on the other hand, has to support the Kashmiri movement, freedom movement. So that's the problem right now. But ideally, we should have peace with India, and the whole subcontinent is held hostage to the Kashmir issue.
He believes there should be peace with India. The third key player in Pakistan is Pakistan People's Party leader Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. In September 2014, he made headlines for a fiery speech at a political rally. He promised to free Kashmir and unite it with Pakistan. He declared that he will bring back every inch of Kashmir. That was the Bhutto sign in 2014. 4 years later, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has toned down. He's a more mature politician and now pitches for talks between the two countries. And the most disastrous consequences for India will be if terrorists rule the Pakistan government. Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed may not be contesting this election himself, but he's fielded more than 260 candidates. He has also been actively campaigning for his son and his party. On the 3rd of July, he was heard hitting out at Pakistani politicians for being puppets of India and the United States. He blamed India for trying to divide Pakistan. This party's win will spell the most unsavory scenario for India. Meanwhile, it's been 10 days since Nawaz Sharif left the comforts of his home in London and flew back to Pakistan. 10 days since he's been lodged in the Adiala jail in Rawalpindi. And the former Pakistani Prime Minister's health has taken a turn for the worst. Sharif's sugar level, we are told, is rising alarmingly. His heartbeat is reportedly irregular due to dehydration. Concerns have been raised that his kidneys could be adversely affected given the presence of urea in his blood. Heat and lack of sleep are adding to Nawaz Sharif's health woes. Doctors have warned that his condition is likely to worsen if he continues to be in the present circumstances. A board of doctors examined Nawaz Sharif and they decided to keep him inside Adiala jail for the moment. But he was shifted from his prison cell to the hospital inside the premises. Sharif's personal doctor does not agree. He's advised the jail administration to move him to a medical facility outside at the earliest.
I will not leave without my doctor. This is extremely unfair. It is inhuman, or everyone knows what kind of medical condition he has gone through in the past.
Sharif's party, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, claimed that his health was deteriorating due to lack of basic facilities in jail. A spokesperson for the party went on to say that jail authorities were depriving the former Prime Minister of even basic facilities. Imagine this. Britain is running out of food supplies. Supermarkets are empty. There is civic unrest over shortage. Trucks carrying basic food items are stuck at ports. Planes are grounded. Millions of citizens are up in arms against the British government. This hypothetical situation could soon become a reality if Britain fails to get a deal on Brexit from the European Union. And this is not our imagination. Business and political leaders in the UK are predicting doomsday scenarios and clashes on the streets. And that's only adding to the immense pressure on Prime Minister Theresa May. Her Brexit plans are on life support and time is running out. The United Kingdom and the European Union must finalize the Brexit deal by October this year. But disagreements and political bickering have put the likelihood of a deal in jeopardy. It's nowhere in sight. The corporate world is leading the charge against Prime Minister May's Brexit plans. After Tata's warning, now Amazon's boss in the UK, Doug Gurr, has warned of civil unrest if the UK fails to reach a Brexit deal. He reportedly made this comment during a meeting with the new Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab. The fear of the UK's exit from the European Union without a deal is now beginning to feel real. And if that happens, an immediate impact would be felt at the borders and at the ports. People and trucks bearing essential supplies would be lining up at the borders and ports for permissions to enter the UK. There could be tighter passport or customs checks. This is because now the United Kingdom would be imposing its own rules on immigration and customs. There won't be any transition period, something that both sides had agreed upon earlier. So businesses based in Britain may respond immediately by moving their operations outside the European Union. Many of them already are doing it. Not all major businesses, though, may feel the need to do that. Citizens of the UK and the EU may lose their rights to move and live freely across Europe. More than 1 million British citizens work and live in various EU member countries, and nearly 4 million Europeans have made the United Kingdom their home. They're all feeling the Brexit blues. None more than the woman who came to power promising Brexit. Theresa May is in a rather precarious position right now. Her party men will not agree to any compromise. The EU is not ceding space. She's caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. The British Prime Minister is dealing with a crisis that will determine the course of her political future.
Well, I couldn't be clearer. Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it. There will be no attempts to remain inside the EU.
This was a bold proclamation from a politician who was trying to win Britain's prime ministership. 2 years later, Theresa May's Brexit plans are on a slippery slope. Britain is split between a hard and a soft Brexit. 2 high-profile exits from the May government raised eyebrows earlier this month. The resignations of David Davis and Boris Johnson stirred up cries of a rebellion within the Conservatives. The United Kingdom is set to leave the European Union on the 29th of March 2019. That is less than a year away. The UK and the EU have agreed on a transition period and rights of their citizens after Brexit. But the negotiations are stalled on the future trade relationship and the Irish border. The border between Northern Ireland and Ireland remains the sticking point. A Brexit deal without free movement of goods would mean that border checks will be introduced at the boundary. The British Prime Minister is demanding a new deal from the European Union on this issue.
The reality is that any agreement we reach with the EU will have to provide for the frictionless movement of goods across the Northern Ireland border. Equally clear is that as a United Kingdom government, we could never accept that the way to prevent a hard border with Ireland is to create a new border within the United Kingdom.
But the Brexit tussle has sparked trouble for Theresa May in London. She's facing calls of resignation from her own party. Some members of the Conservatives will not accept a compromise on Brexit. But if there is no agreement over Northern Ireland and a possible trade deal, there may not be a Brexit deal at all. Bureau Report, WION.
So why aren't talks moving forward? Let's try to simplify this rather complex deadlock for you. The Brexit impasse is mainly over 2 issues. The first one is trade. Britain wants a post-Brexit trade deal with the European Union, and this could be done in 2 ways. The United Kingdom may continue to have access to the EU free market. The problem is politics. This decision affects the Prime Minister's position. Her party wants to snap all ties with the European Union, including trade ties. That brings us to the second choice, which is a fresh trade deal between Britain and the EU. The problem is they can't seem to agree on it. We've seen constant back and forth for months now. The deadline is in October. They could agree on a broad framework for a future trade agreement to push the Brexit deal in time, by October. The second issue is of the border rights of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is a region that has witnessed a 30-year-long conflict, a violent conflict. Free movement between Ireland, which is a member of the European Union, and Northern Ireland, which is a part of the UK, could be affected by Brexit. After Brexit, this boundary between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland will be the only land border between Britain and the European Union. Technically, if Britain wants a tight control over its borders, it could place passport checks, customs checks and tariffs at the border. This is something that the European Union and the Irish are not ready to accept, hence the impasse. Theresa May has a tough challenge on her hands. Brexit is proving to be a make-or-break issue for the Conservatives and the biggest challenge that Theresa May will perhaps face in her political career. Members of Parliament from the Conservative side have been playing hardball with the Prime Minister. If there's no deal in place, Britain could be pushed into another general election, perhaps even a second referendum on Brexit. That may not be a bad idea, in fact. A second referendum could be the cleanest way to break this deadlock, and the odds for this plan continue to grow. If it does happen, Britain will face three choices. They can choose to remain in the European Union, or they can choose Brexit, with or without a trade deal with Europe. There is a strong chance that Britain may choose to overrun the previous verdict. A survey by YouGov in 2016 found that 54% of British citizens would choose to remain in the EU if given another chance to vote. Meanwhile, Britain continues to make headlines for all the wrong reasons. A 3-year-old boy became the latest victim of an acid attack. It sent shockwaves across the world. British police have arrested 3 men in London. This incident took place at the Home Bargain store in Worcester. The boy was taken to hospital with serious burns to his arm and face. Doctors have discharged him, but the long-term implications of the injuries are not clear yet.
I'm really pleased to say that little boy's been discharged now. He's back with his parents, and at the moment we're uncertain as to what the extent of those injuries will be and what the long-term implications are. But it's really, really pleasing that he's been released from hospital now.
The motive of the attack has not been ascertained yet. Britain has seen a steep rise in acid attacks recently, and the government is taking action to tighten sales of corrosive substances, particularly to those under the age of 18. Britain, in fact, has one of the highest rates of acid attacks per capita in the world. Acid attacks have cost Britain $80 million a year. Experts say the number of such attacks has more than trebled since 2014 in the last 4 years, with girls and women being the usual targets. Midfielder Mesut Ozil has added fuel to the raging fire on immigration in Germany. The 29-year-old footballer has quit the German team and has announced his retirement. This is after Germany's shock group stage exit from the 2018 Football World Cup. Ozil shared a heart-wrenching account of his experiences after the tournament. He claims that he faced racism, he faced disrespect in Germany because of his Turkish roots. The midfielder decided to play for Germany at the age of 19. He was born in the country. His ancestors belong to Turkey. He says that he's been receiving hate mails now and threats, and that he's being blamed for Germany's loss at the World Cup. Ozil hit out at the German team's coach and manager. He also slammed his fans for their behavior after the team's loss in Russia. He blamed them for double standards, for questioning his loyalty to the German side. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's spokesperson has issued a statement saying that the Chancellor respects Ozil's announcement. Rescue workers needed some rescuing this time. We're talking about the White Helmets, the country's most famous first responders, an all-volunteer group carrying out rescue and relief work in areas bombed by the Syrian government. More than 400 of them were evacuated through Israel to Jordan. From there, they were taken to the west for eventual resettlement. But just who are these White Helmets and what do they do? WION's West Asia Bureau Chief Daniele Pagani reports from Amman.
Until now, Israel has only carried out airstrikes on suspected Iranian bases in Syria. But the latest intervention is perhaps the first of its kind and came at the request of Israel's close allies.
לפני ימים אחדים פנה אליי הנשיא טראמפ, ופנו גם ראש ממשלת קנדה טרודו ואחרים, בבקשה שנעזור להוציא מסוריה מאות אנשי קסדות לבנות. אלה אנשים שהצילו חיים ונמצאו עכשיו בסכנת חיים. ולכן אישרתי להעביר אותם דרך ישראל למדינות נוספות כצעד הומניטרי חשוב.
The evacuation took place early on Sunday morning along Syria's border with Israel on the Golan Heights. Reports said 422 members of the White Helmets and their families were moved out in buses across the border into Israel. From there, they were driven across into neighboring Jordan, and reports said they are being kept in camps in the capital, Amman. In about 3 months' time, they will be flown out to Britain, Germany and Canada for resettlement. The White Helmets described themselves as a purely rescue group, evacuating people from bombed buildings, rendering first aid and moving the injured to hospitals in Syria's conflict zones. The Syrian government disagrees, describing them as in league with jihadi groups and terrorists. An investigation by independent British journalist Vanessa Beeley turned up some interesting facts. The White Helmets were set up in 2013 by an ex-British military officer. Initial seed funding of $300,000 came from the UK, Japan and the US. Later, money came from the US and even Qatar, among other countries. They are an all-volunteer group. Other reports point to the 62,000-odd people the White Helmets have saved from certain death. The Syrian government's ban on any medical aid reaching rebel-held areas has left the White Helmets as the only succor for besieged civilian populations. The Beeley investigation said the White Helmets' leader, Raed Saleh, was expelled from the US for extremist connections. It says members of the White Helmets have collaborated in killings by jihadi groups, notably the Rashidin massacre of 300 people by the Nusra Front in April last year.
If we want to understand better how an organization like the White Helmet works, we need to understand what it is like to operate in a polarized conflict like the Syrian civil war. There are and there have been many areas under jihadi groups' control. So, when the White Helmets needed to operate in these areas in order to rescue all the people immediately after an airstrike, there may have been many cases where the White Helmets had to strike deals with these jihadi groups in order to be allowed to reach the sites of the airstrikes and help the people. The truth about the White Helmet may only come out years after the Syrian civil war will end. From Amman, Jordan, Daniele Pagani for WION.